Hi, I'm Kalah Minix. I'm here with you in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina. I went vegan in 2021. It's been a slow, natural process for me in my journey of healing. There was some health issues I dealt with a few years back, and that started opening my eyes to what dairy does to our bodies, and it kind of snowballed from there. So at the time I was doing a lot of work farming, and I had a lot of back pain, and I went to what's kind of like a chiropractor. Before he even assessed my body or tried to do any type of work, he said, "Do you eat a lot of dairy?" And I was like, yeah. Like, I love yogurt, I love milk and cheese, and he said, yeah, you gotta stop that. I was like, what? What does that have anything to do with my back, you know? Like, it was really odd. So went home, stopped doing it, and within a week my back pain was like gone. And it was pretty, because I dealt with that for years and years. And so he was explaining that the dairy is very inflammatory to the body. And so my gastric muscles and like everything inside of my belly was so irritated and so inflamed and so angry that it was just tightening and tightening and tightening, and then it was pulling on my back and creating this pain from my stomach, you know? And so that was really, anyway, that was one of the first eye-opening moments, like, whoa, this is actually not good for my body. Like, and it went from there.
Is there any like ethical inclination too, or is it mostly just health oriented?
So mine is mostly health oriented. When I was in college in biology, we had to read a book called The Omnivore's Dilemma, which is a really eye-opening one for that. So the story starts with this plate of food, and the author goes into each thing that's on the plate and where it came from and how it got there. And so when he gets to the meat portion of the plate, it gets pretty raunchy about how it gets to the plate. And after that, for about a month or two, I wouldn't eat any meat just because it was so fresh in my mind. But I feel, unfortunately, like it's so deeply ingrained in us that that's what we're supposed to do, or that's how we're supposed to eat. Like the people around you, that's what they were doing, and so you revert back. Or that's what happened with me. I reverted back. Not so much in beef, but I was still eating a lot of chicken and fish, like white meat. And then I moved into a phase of where I wouldn't eat any meat except fish. And then I was like fish and dairy and vegetables. And then it was like a lot of vegetables, a little bit of fish, or a little bit of chicken. And then it's just kind of came into just completely plants, which feels great. And it's fun too, because you can think of the things that you've enjoyed prior to the vegan. If you haven't always been vegan, I think it's a nice challenge to think about the dishes that you did like and how you can use alternatives to create those same dishes and have that same experience that you had with that dish. But in a way, for me, it feels happier. Like it feels like it gives your body a different vibration when you're eating fully plant-based.
Now, do you identify as a vegan 100% of the time now?
No, I don't openly say that, no.
Right. Do you think you might though, eventually?
I mean, my actions are of the vegan life, like the vegan way. I can't say the lifestyle fully because I still have products that are made with animal, you know, with
like what?
Like my shoes.
Oh, okay.
Like I have a pair of boots that are leather made, you know.
Now,
like,
you wouldn't go buy more of those, would you?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but I have. But what I'm saying is, I'm still utilizing them, though.
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
So
I've been a vegan since 2011, or that's how long I've had it. And I've got a leather belt on that I've had since the 90s.
yeah,
You know, it's like I don't know what to do with it. Like,
yeah.
it's like, but yeah,
But it's something that I think about now that I hadn't thought about before.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
as
yeah.
the diet, the diet has started like penetrating other parts of the thinking of how things. There's alternatives. Like,
Now, have you noticed anything different since you've cut all? You haven't had any meat since 20. Has it been a year? now?
yeah, it's been a year for the meat for sure.
Yeah. And have you noticed anything physically or mentally or anything different?
Physically, absolutely. My skin is just like completely different.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Cutting meat out changed your skin.
I think so. Other than that, I've spent a lot more time in nature too, so maybe it's just the combination of the two. But this is, I mean, you can't see it, I'm covered up, but this is the tannest I've ever been in my life, like ever. I'm
Is that
usually,
because no meat, or are you eating different foods? Maybe more of other foods that might help with that.
I think it's the plants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. What's a typical day like eating?
Smoothies in the morning, some fruits, and then breakfast is also, a good one is a rice cake with peanut butter and dates and some seeds on top and a little agave sometimes. And then for dinner, I've been graced with rosettas lately. So beans and rice and avocado and chips and hummus.
Yeah.
That's a staple. Yeah.
So yeah, and Rosetta is because of Aaron Miller, right?
Yes, because of Aaron Miller. You can see him on episode 1 of series 3. If you would like to revert back to
It's not
to see
episode
his
1.
story.
It was just the first one I shot.
Oh, it's the first one. Okay, excuse me.
That was a good one though.
Do you think you'll ever eat animals again?
No.
Okay. Do you think you'll basically be vegan from here on out?
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. What makes you so confident?
Oh, I feel it. I feel better. It feels more natural in a way too. Like,
You know, before you said you had a lot of social pressures that derailed you. Do you think that could happen again?
no, not now. That's the thing. I'm not very outspoken about it. I'd rather just do it. With the people around me, it was more about like, she has a special diet. It's come on as a special diet, and like, and it's really interesting too because I took a food allergy test, like the blood test, and to see what my allergies were, and my main ones were egg, beef, cheese, milk, like all the dairy and some meat stuff. And I was like, whoa, I've been poisoned, like I've been creating all of these problems for myself all these years too. And that's another big reason I will absolutely not go back. Like that would be insane, you know, too. I feel like with the animal, I mean, I love animals, and it's really contradictory when you say that and then you go and eat animal products. But in your mind, I don't know, I don't know how do we bypass that? Like, how do we make it okay?
Now, do you think it's important for other people to be vegan?
As good as I feel now, I would want that for others. And so I think, like, for me, it's been really fun, and it feels good to be able to share the things that I'm eating and like enjoying with others so that they can see that there are alternatives too. I remember the first time I had a vegan lasagna, it blew my mind. Blew my mind completely. Like, I was just like, because it was at a home of a couple that have been vegan for years, and so they just brought out this big lasagna for a lot of non-vegan people and didn't say anything. It was just lasagna, right? And so I'm eating it, and it had like the soy pieces that kind of look like beef, you know, like the crumbled beef. And I was thinking, I was confused, you know? I was like, why would they make some meat lasagna for us when they're not eating meat, you know? That didn't make sense to me, because it tasted just like it, like the traditional, you know, lasagna. And I asked, I was like, what's in this? And so they explained all the ingredients and stuff. And I was like, whoa, this is possible, you know? It's more of that, like, we think I can't give that up, or, oh, you know, there's not going to be anything as good as this. And we're so attached to these memories, I guess, we have with certain foods or certain things that we've consumed over the years as comfort food. But like, I just recently found out there's vegan donuts, like, you know, so anything's possible. And I've learned that through baking too. Like I told you, I had a lot of friends who had food allergies, and so they couldn't consume egg or dairy or wheat or whatever. So for me personally, that was a fun challenge to find ways just to use vegetables and just to use plants to make something to share with everyone.
It's funny you should mention lasagna. In the 90s, I was going to App State, and there was a restaurant that had a vegetable lasagna, and I got it, and I was like so stoked about it. I was like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. And then when Dr. Greger from Nutrition Facts, he had a cookbook that came out. So his first book was How Not to Die, and then his next book was How Not to Die Cookbook. And then that cookbook had a lasagna in it. When I got it, I was like one of the first people to get it. And the first thing I did was make the lasagna recipe, and I did a video of it. Nice. You can see that, yeah, it's on my channel. But so I was excited about that. But do you think he'll become an advocate at any point?
What do you mean?
Like, do you think he'll try to encourage other people? Like you said, you're kind of quiet about it, you don't really like, you know, maybe talk about it or whatever. Do you think you would ever try to influence others in any way?
Well, I feel our actions influence others around us, and even though it's not like standing on a podium, like talking about it, I feel like it's still influencing someone. There's that ripple effect in everything that we do. So hopefully we choose, you know, wholesome, loving things to do to ripple out, you know, and I mean, just in my family unit, I see it a little bit already touching some of the people in my family, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, you know, that they would prefer to eat this with me instead of that, you know, for breakfast, for example. Or right now, I would say I would be more on the smaller scale of just.
So how would you define veganism?
Ooh. When I'm talking to people that don't know about veganism, which I'm a newbie in this too, so I don't know, like, you don't consume any animal byproducts of any sort, like nothing. So it's all, I like plant-based. I like the explanation of plant-based. I think that helps touch like all of it, but I think about it in regards to like mostly food. I mean, it's so that's why I said with the other things I'm still trying to understand, but it's like kind food. It's
Did you say kind?
Yeah, choosing kind food, kind actions.
So how has veganism affected your relationships with others, like family and friends?
I come from a family who wants to share food as a way of like loving each other, you know, and so, which I feel is pretty common. That's not to say it's just a Southern thing, but it has affected that bond or connection, I would say, because it has made it more difficult. Instead of going to a family dinner and just eating whatever's on the table like normal, usually I eat before, or I'll bring my own food. Or just recently, like my grandma started to sometimes make things without animal products in it, which is very, very thoughtful of her, like towards me, which I feel very grateful for when she does do that, because that's big. Usually, you know, they're using lard or bacon or something. It has been difficult though, because it's like, oh, she has a special diet, I don't know what to feed her. It creates like this unsettling, you feel it. It's like unsettling for them and for me too, because it's like, oh, we're losing this bond somehow, and we're having to try to figure out how to do it in another way. An alternative, another alternative, seeking alternatives here. It's like, oh, what can she eat? You know, what can we feed her? How can we show her this love? And I'm like, oh no, it's fine. I'll take care of myself and I'll be happy to share this with you, but you don't have to do anything. So there's kind of an anxiousness around it right now. This is new. This is new too. So hopefully over time it'll be more comfortable, but it's been interesting. I was at there's a vegan restaurant in Tennessee, and there's some nice pamphlets about veganism and how it affects the environment, actually. Just that, like, that's the theme of it, is how our diet affects the environment. And the lady there was like, yeah, take as many as you want. And so I was like, oh, this is a good idea. I'll keep them with me and maybe like leave them around. But I was just at a family thing recently and I had one and I was reading it and they're like, what are you reading? And so I was explaining and then you just get stonewalled, right? It's just quiet, nothing. Conversation ends. So it's like, okay, there's no space to really talk about this right now. And you just kind of...
Do you try to find ways to approach them, or?
I just do my things. I just do what I need to do for myself. It's not about pressuring anybody else. No, it's not about making them do differently or pressuring or anything. I feel like I've had a lot of impressions put on me just by people's actions around me. And so I feel like that's probably, in my world, that's more important, just to plant those seeds by doing your own thing. And if people see that you're doing good, you're feeling good, they're like, what's going on? What are you up to? You know, and they get curious, and on their own, they find their own little nuggets of, I don't know, wisdom, I guess, in that. And that can be hopefully beneficial for them.
Yeah.
Just on their own.
So we might have got a little derailed on the food thing. We started talking about lasagna. What kind of what kind of other foods might you have for like lunch or dinner?
For lunch and dinner, I really love soup. Soup is easy. That's a really easy way to cook up some good veggies, and that's usually better for dinner because it's lighter on the stomach. And lunch can be like a heavier meal. I really like making curries and rice. That's an easy one for me too. Like, you can put anything in there, sweet potatoes or peas or coconut milk, and it's tasty and feels good on the belly. And
that's smart too, because they say get the bulk of your calories earlier in the day.
In Ayurveda, they speak to the fire, our digestive fire, and so it's strongest in the middle of the day. So your biggest meal is more easily processed in the middle of the day. So they said around lunchtime, that's when you can have your big meal, your sweets. That's a good time to do it too, because your body's ready to burn it up. But if you're ingesting things in the morning that kill that fire, then you're killing it the rest of the day. So one of the things that I learned in the Panchakarma, the therapy that I went to at the Ayurvedic Center, is like in the mornings it's good to actually start with spicy foods. And that helps bring that fire to awaken that digestive fire too.
Well, let's go back to relationships. Could you be with somebody who isn't vegan?
I've tried and it was very difficult, honestly. Because you can't share, it's that same connection thing. Like, you can't share your meals, you can't share.
You don't think they might change over time? Some people are pretty relaxed about it.
Well, maybe it depends on the person, but what I've been around, it's not, it doesn't work that way. So, but everybody's different, so.
I guess you have faith that there's plenty of vegan fish in the sea.
Absolutely. Vegan fish in the sea. Are there vegan fish? Wait.
Aren't fish vegetables? Somebody said that one time. I was like, what the hell?
What? For me, food is a love language, and so I think it really depends on that. Like, I know some couples who, I know an older couple, for example. That's something I actually talked to him about. The man, he's really he's pretty much he is plant-based. He'll eat a little bit of meat, but very rarely. And she is like not so into it. Like, she doesn't really like vegetables. And they figure it out, but they don't really bond over food either. They go to the restaurant a lot, and like, it's not like they're cooking meals together, or they're not sharing that facet of the relationship together. So it's easier for them to have this separate, I don't know, I don't really know how to explain that, but for me, food's important. Like, this is something I want to share with people. This is a part of me. So if I can't share that with you, like, I feel like I can't give you love in a way. And so then it's like really difficult to be able to connect, you know.
Do you have any regrets?
Now, I wish that when I read that book for the first time, and when I had that first like eye-opening experience of what was going on with our food, and like when I started feeling that like nasty feeling of like, oh, when I eat this chicken or eat this beef, or what I'm actually doing, I wish I would have just stayed in that, because that has affected it's affected everything. Like, thinking back to, I mean, my parents told me, my mom's told me that like when I was a kid, all I would eat was strawberry milk and hot dogs, raw hot dogs, by the way. And I think about that a lot now, like, who would I be now if, yeah. Could have been a whole other person. Like, my body has dealt with so much. Like, even in these short, you know, like, I'm only 31, but still, like, I've had so many issues with my body. And I know that that affects the mind, that affects, like, relationships, that affects everything around you. So it's not just eating bad food. Like, it's a lot deeper than that. Presently in my life right now, there's a lot of like unlearning a lot of things, and like having to, my parents done the best they could, you know, that's not on them whatsoever, but there comes a point that we kind of have to reparent ourselves in a lot of things. And so it's a lot of unlearning, relearning, and then you get into like place of like, this is who I am because of all these things now. Like, I am who I am now because of everything, but it's kind of like we're in this mourning. We have to like go through a mourning of who we could have been too. And so I think that's why I'm getting emotionally affected right now, because that's something that's been very present just recently a lot, and making better choices for myself, and like looking back at, you know, what did happen and how I got here. It could have been a whole other experience completely.
I think about that a lot too. There's a book called Undo It. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It's by one of the most epic people in the plant-based health movement, Dr. Dina Ornish. Maybe you'll check it out. Undo It.
Undo It. Okay.
Literally, like what you said, just felt like that so much. Why didn't you go vegan sooner?
I think there's the part of the unknowing, first of all, like that there was other ways, I think. And then I think another part of it was the people pleasing in it, like that social connection, being afraid of losing that. And so even in the time that I was just vegetarian, it was already difficult in some group functions, because like I said, the people are creating these dishes and creating these meals out of their love. Their love, and wanting to share that with you. For Christmas, the family that I had in France, what they would do is the money that they would normally spend on Christmas gifts, they would pay to go to like a really fancy restaurant, like really like high scale, like bring you multiple little dishes throughout the meal. And there's always meat. There's always meat on the menu. It's like you can choose between bird or fish or beef. Like, you don't have any other choice, you know? And so the only things otherwise that you're getting are like these small portions of vegetables made into like a soup or whatever. And I remember, like, I didn't like it. Like, I didn't want any of the things on the menu. even at that point, I wasn't saying that I was vegan. It was just I didn't have any desire to eat that. And so I would have to choose one because that's what you're supposed to do. But then I would ask somebody else to eat it for me, you know? Because I was trying to find the loophole around it, that I would be respectful in what I'm supposed to be doing in that environment, but also not have to like make myself consume something that I didn't want to. And so I feel like a lot of it's been social for me, honestly, because by myself at home, I wasn't consuming a lot of meat. Dairy, yes, like I loved cheese, I loved yogurt and things like that, but I haven't stood up for myself, like, you know, like I haven't, and that touches in with a lot of other facets.
I like how you talk about it in such a way that it's being like introspective about being trapped in that social expectation, being trapped in that and immersed in that normalcy, glamorizing that, and you're aware that that prevented you from actualizing your potential to go in that direction.
Yeah. There's these people that we love, and like I want to be there with them, like I want to like share these moments with them, and I understand now that that's theirs. Like if they get upset about me not eating their pheasant or whatever, that's their problem. But when you're in it, before when I've been in it, it's like I really don't want to hurt them. That's where it comes from, you know, like I don't want to disrespect them in a way, even though I understand they're being, like we're all being disrespectful to another being by having a meal of them, right? I get that. But that's the scenario that I was in, and that's where my mind was, and so that's what I was acting out of. Yeah.
Do you think we'll ever see a vegan world?
Oh, that would be great. I was telling Aaron, wouldn't it be fun to like have the fast food vegan icons on the highways, you know? Like one day it'll just be all salad restaurants or plant-based restaurants instead of KFC or McDonald's or...
How can we get there?
How can we get there? I think having more conversations like this, for sure. I think it's about having more conversations and also just about sharing. Like the way Aaron's making burritos for like tons of people. I know when somebody preaches at me, I don't take it very well. And so, but if somebody's like, hey, you want a burrito? And then you eat it and it's great. And I'm like, oh, it's all plants? That's cool. I can do that. You know, there's something about the simplicity and making it self-empowered, like showing them that there's small things that you can do that has these positive ripples on the world around them, you know, so kind choices. It's just kind choices. Yeah, I feel like it's about sharing. It's something about exchanging that with others.
What if a doctor said you had to eat animals? Would you eat animals?
No. I think that we know our bodies better than anyone else, so we get to decide that for ourselves.
But, you know, and then at the same time, non-vegans can say that, right?
Yeah. That's true. It can go both ways.
What do you think about people that aren't eating vegan, that are like really hyped up on these carnivore, keto, paleo diets? Are you aware of the carnivore diet?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think
It makes
about
my tummy turn. but that's the thing. I mean, the thing is they're being told that that's what's best for them and they believe in it. So I feel like it's a lot about believing. But is it really helping them? Is it really healing them? It might be in one spot, because I know a lot of people that do it for weight purposes, like weight loss, but yet their bodies are still suffering from a lot of other health issues. Yeah, they're gonna lose this weight, but they also have like really high blood pressure and like they're kind of sluggish, and you know, they've got all this other stuff going on that they're told, oh, well, that's because you have this, or that's because you have that, and that, and that, and then you believe like you have all these issues, and most people are doing what they think is best for themselves, and so That's a hard one.
Is your dog vegan?
She now is, yeah. Yeah.
Cool. What does she eat?
Well, it's the Nature's Balance vegetarian diet. It comes in a big bag. So I water it down for her because she don't have a lot of teeth. But then also she loves like raw vegetables, like raw broccoli and cauliflower. And she loves watermelon. Like, she gets really excited about watermelon. And like citrus fruits too. She loves citrus fruits.
What kind of dog is she?
She's a Palmapoo.
So who's that?
This is Woo Woo.
Nice. Tell us about Woo Woo. Where'd you find Woo Woo?
My parents blessed me with her almost 13 years ago. And so she's been my buddy ever since. She's been a traveling puppy.
Now, did she eat anything else besides that big bag of delicious vegan food that you mentioned earlier?
She eats a little bit of whatever we're eating too. So, like I said, she loves like raw broccoli and cauliflower stalks, and she likes carrots and watermelon.
Wow.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Fortunately, we have the internet, and there's a lot of sources out there and a lot of information out there, and like, just get curious, be curious, and try things too. I mean, as you're eating, just see if that's something that they respond to,
What's
Also,
Woo's favorite food?
Woo's favorite food. It's watermelon, absolutely. Like, she gets really crazy about it. Like, when you're going to cut it up, she does this thing where she scratches off and like she goes, and she really loves it. She could eat a whole bowl of it.
How did you come up with the name Woo?
Oh. Her actual name is Oriel, it came from like golden winged angel or something. But what happened was, in my family, like, my grandpa, he didn't really like dogs, and my parents always had a lot of dogs. Not a lot, but they always had a few dogs. And so when they got Woo, he was like, he really liked her. And so my dad was like, oh, she wooed him. And we seen that happen with other people, like in the family, who weren't really partial to dogs. And so then we just started calling her Woo, and then it got to Woo Woo, and so now she's a Woo Woo. Yeah.
What's one Woo Woo's favorite things to do?
Oh, to eat. Eat and sleep, and now we found out that she really enjoys, it's funny to see her at the waterfalls now. She'll just like go off and sit and just watch the waterfalls, or go lay in the water and just relax. It's really nice to see.
Yeah. People seem to really enjoy asking you about what's in your backpack when you're hiking.
Yeah.
We'll have to get a little B-roll of that.
Yeah, that'd be nice. See her popped out of there. Yeah, she enjoys the trails. She enjoys being outside.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time, Woo. Woo Woo.
Thank you.
Do you have a quote you like to share?
A quote? Whoa. Stay curious. Like, keep an open mind about things, because not just about outside, but about yourself too, the internal. And I feel like that can help make your life path go a lot easier. Because I feel we don't listen to ourselves a lot of the time, and we're looking for validation and advice and direction from outside of us. Like, and there's some people that never do that, but I feel like a lot of us can be that way, and we lose ourselves in that, and we lose this connection that we have with everyone because of that. And so if we can get back and get curious and find our way, I don't know.
Well, I like that, because it's kind of like, I know some people who aren't curious, they're just stuck doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
And this redundant conformity.
I was having a really good conversation with my grandma the other day about change, and she said life, she was talking about how life is change, like it's constantly changing. And so if we're living we're moving with that. Like, we're moving with that change. And she said, you know, we look around and we see a lot of people who are stuck and they're fighting their life because they're trying to stay in what they think it needs to be, and so instead of just flowing with what's coming and living, they're suffering and they're stuck, and it's sad because you can see that there's potential for them to have this whole other way, and
it's important to maintain a premise of ethics and, you know, around that too, right? Like change in a healthy direction.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we all want to be loved and accepted at our base, and so it's not to like go against that, but some people aren't exposed to healthy and kind things. Like their changes are probably going to be a lot slower and a lot more gradual because they don't have that exposure. And I know that's like that's our own. There's a point that it comes to that it is our choices, and I can't even say an adult because a lot of kids are thrown into situations where they have to figure it out for themselves a lot sooner, but
speaks a lot to the conformity or the culture. You went into the core of the culture a little bit. It speaks to our culture here, you know?
Because what you think is a it's just that kind choice thing. It's like people are going to have different definitions of that. And so how do we generalize it? Like, how can it just become, like, how can we say this is a kind choice and that is not? And so it's how to move it into...
It's a paradigm shift.
Yeah. Because what I could have thought was a kind choice, you know, 6 years ago is not necessarily really a kind choice when I'm thinking about it now, you know? And so it's also a shift in the perspective of things too.
Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you might want to share with others?
It doesn't have to be in respect to the food, like in veganism and food and all of that. It doesn't have to be like this deprivation of pleasure, or like I have to be healthy, or I have to do this, or I have to... Invite yourself to enjoy it and to find a way to have fun in that, in making those choices, and be creative. I don't know. You can look at it as like an opportunity to practice some creativity in your life and find alternatives and experiment and like get in touch with that. I mean, I feel like I'm speaking from my little kid self right now. Like, it's fun, you know, you can try different things and yeah, just enjoy.
Would you eat lab-grown meat?
Lab-grown? Nah.
Do you know about it?
Do
you know that exists?
No, I didn't know it existed.
Oh, yeah.
It's existing
Kayla and I
already?
both are pretty out of tune with like modern times, by the way.
What's lab-grown meat?
It's all good. I was just curious. We can move on.
It already sounds disgusting, so I don't... Have I ate lab-grown?
No, would you?
No.
Do you avoid using the word vegan or replace it with plant-based or anything else?
I'm more apt to just not say anything, actually. Like, I'm not using a title, I guess.
Well, like say you're at a restaurant even.
Yeah.
You know, I want my food to be vegan.
Yeah.
Or do you say plant-based? Or you just say don't put any meat, egg, dairy, cheese. You know, you like, you know, all that. I mean, not well, cheese, you know, milk,
yeah.
cheese. No queso, no carne, vegano.
I think...
It's a lot of lists.
Yeah. It depends on where I'm at, I think. There have been some places that I've went in and said, do you have vegan options? And then there's some places that I look at the menu, I don't say anything, and I'll just say, can I get this without this, this, and this? And so...
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering. This is kind of like stigma related because there is a stigma.
There is a stigma around
and I don't
the
know
vegan.
if you're trying to tiptoe around that or not ever.
Oh yeah, definitely especially in the area that I'm from, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's actually a restaurant that I was saying there's a restaurant that opened up that's like 45 minutes from my house. I'd heard that they used a lot of vegetables, and that was like how people were talking about it, that it was vegetable based. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I go there, and with that in my mind, and I'm like, do you have any like vegan options? And the man there was like, yeah, we're a vegan restaurant. He's like, but we put that we're plant-based, you know? And it comes across softer to the people of that region. And so a lot of people come in not knowing that they're getting ready to eat just plants. And they order, you know, biscuits and gravy like they would at any other little restaurant around town. Yet there's no animal byproducts, no animals in it whatsoever. And so the man that was working there, he said, yeah, that's a beautiful moment when people were like, wait, that's not, like, that's all plants, you know? What is it they say? Proof is in the pudding, you know? There's something about having it first. It makes me think of when I was growing up, I grew up with a Filipino family, and so a lot of the food is very different than your typical, you know, American food. So the mom, anytime she wanted us to eat something, she would never tell us what was in it. And then once we tried it, and if we decided, you know, we liked it or didn't like it or whatever, then she would have the conversation of what was in the food. And then you're like, oh wait, I do like that, or I don't like that, or it helped to have like this non-biased experience with what you're tasting. And so I feel like that's nice to give that opportunity to people. Like, they get to make the decision whether they enjoy it or not.
Prior to going vegan, did you ever think there was no way I'll ever go vegan?
Huh. Yeah, when I was younger, because I did not eat vegetables like at all. Like, I had my first salad when I was 13. Like, that was a pivoting moment in my life that I sat down and ate a salad. And it was because of a social pressure too. I was with a bunch of friends, and they all got the salad bar, and I was like, I don't want that. And they were like, oh, you don't eat salad? And I'm like, I've never had a salad, you know? They're like, you gotta have a salad. I'm like, okay. And so I tried it and I liked it. But so, okay. I think it comes down to your social groups. I mean, that's, it's nice if you can at least have one, you know, like one vegan in your group to have that little, to sow those seeds. But for me, I guess it's been a lot about who I've surrounded myself with.
Why do you think some people quit veganism?
Ooh. I think it comes down to people. I think it comes down to who you're with. I mean,
That's what Caroline said.
yeah. I know people who have been plant-based for a long time or vegetarian for a long time, and then someone comes in their life and is like, oh, you gotta try this. You have to eat this dish with me, you know, and because of wanting to connect with that person or wanting to have that relationship, they'll fold and they'll go into that. And so, unfortunately, I've seen that in some people around me, which I see that they get really confused too, because you see that they're like going against themselves in order to keep this connection with someone that they love. And I think that could be a reason for relapse, for sure. But I don't know otherwise. I mean, I haven't had that
You think
experience.
That's a good answer.
Do you think you'll have vegan kids one day?
Yeah, that's what I hope. I hope to have children, and then yes, they would be vegan for sure. Yeah.
Do you have a vegan doctor?
I don't have a doctor.
You have any tips for people wanting to go vegan?
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. There's no need to pressure yourself into like, we're really hard on ourselves most of the time, and so if we can just be kind and like make it easy for ourselves, I think that's the key to like eat more fruit, you know, start there. You know, like pasta, rice, I don't know. It don't have to be intricate. It can be very, just eat simply, and I think that naturally puts you into like the vegan way too. So yeah,
I like
keep
that.
it simple.